Well, I don't look about 100 years because science fiction writers who try to predict the future are like drug dealers who take their own product. It always ends badly. But 5 years, I mean, I think that we have a bunch of really big existential crises in how technology is being integrated into our world. So we've decided that a lot of the expectations of privacy that we've historically held don't hold in the online world. You know, the David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has said that he wants to ban civilian use of cryptography because he says that the police should always be able to get a warrant to listen in on your conversations, and it's never been the case that just because you had a technology that the police couldn't exercise that warrant. And that has a certain facile sense to it, but when you think about it, what he's saying is not the police should always be able to open your mail. He's saying that all of the conversations that you have should be auditable by the police even back in time. And you know, the police never had the ability to know all the things that you said to a friend over your breakfast table or at a restaurant or, you know, sitting next to each other in the office, and now all those communications are digital. David Cameron has said that they should all be retained indefinitely and be visible to the police forever. And I think that that kind of bad analogous thinking is terrifying. The other thing that I'm worried about is that we have these anti-piracy laws all around the world that started with the American Digital Millennium Copyright Act, but they're in the EU through the UCD, and they're in Canada through Bill C-11. They're all over the place. And these anti-piracy laws, they make it a felony to take a lock off a device or to give people information that they could use to remove the lock, which includes any information about flaws in the device. And originally this applied to things like DVD players, and that kind of sucked because it let companies rip us off with multi-region DVDs, but now it applies to everything because your phone and your thermostat and your car all have these digital locks on them, and it's against the law to tell you about flaws in them. And so these things become festering reservoirs of long-lived digital pathogens that can screw you in every single way, and people who discover them aren't allowed to tell you about them. And that's really, really scary. That's my daughter. You know, Larry Lessig talks about there being 4 forces that act on the world: code, markets, laws, and norms. And so I have a project with the Electronic Frontier Foundation to try and reform the law. We have people who are doing things technologically that are likely to attract legal action, and when they do, we're hoping that our defense in that lawsuit will overturn the law. We also think that even as that lawsuit is underway, if the law becomes legally ambiguous, if no one's sure how the case will turn out, then there will be a case for starting businesses that assume that we're going to win. Because breaking these digital locks is profitable, right? The only reason to use a digital lock is to command high margins in your product, to say, well, only we can sell apps into our app store, only we can sell parts for our gadget, and so we can charge whatever the market will bear for that and not have to worry about a competitor who competes with us. I think that once we make the status of that law ambiguous, people will start businesses that treat the law as though it will eventually fall. And that will give us facts on the ground that we can use in our court case, because we can say to the judges, look, you know, the people have been circumventing and the sky hasn't fallen, American business is still strong. I think normatively we can talk about the fact that this isn't fair. Just because a company can do it, it doesn't mean that they should. That, you know, being treated as an ambulatory wallet by a company that just uses the law to screw you out of every nickel they can for spare parts is not, even though it realizes maximal shareholder value for that company, it's not socially acceptable. And I think that we can make code that gets around these restrictions and helps people realize more value from the things that they own, and that these 4 factors will work together to solve our problems.